The Low Cuts, Part 2. The four of them together were the kids teachers were concerned about. The ones they talked trash about in the teachers' lounge. The ones they marked as at risk. They were the ones Miss Walkley would wag her finger and shake her head at whenever they walked down the hall or sat together and had secret meetings at lunch. The way they were, a braid of brilliance and bravado, concerned everyone. "Everybody ready?" Bit asked, one foot on the bench, huddling everybody up. Trista was the only one not paying attention. She was talking to a boy who responded awkwardly, like he was scared or something. No surprise. "Trista." Bit shot her a look. "Ready, ready." Trista joined the fold, slipping her phone from her back pocket to check the time. "It's 3:16. Truck comes in an hour," Francie announced. "Let's see how much we got," John said, opening his hand. Some dimes, a nickel. Everyone else dug in their pockets and dropped their findings into John's cupped palm. A few more nickels, some found in the change slots of the lunchroom vending machines. Others found deep in the pockets of unsuspecting skinny boys wearing unforgiving skinny jeans. Quite a few pennies found swept into the corner by Mr. Munch, the school's janitor. These had to be sifted out from dust bunnies, gum wrappers, and hair ties. Nickels and dimes swiped from teachers' desks. Only from the top, never from the drawers. No quarters on this run, unfortunately. Trista moved the change around with her finger, counting 78, 70, 80, 85, 86, 87, 88, 89, 90, Bit asked, his eyes darting from John's palm to the double doors. Miss Walkley was always too close for comfort. "Yeah, only 90 cents, Trista confirmed, counting it all. She turned to Bit, who was rocking back and forth, anxious. "Think that's enough?" Bit spat. "We'll make this work." He marched off, and the others followed behind, worming through the crowd and up to the light. They crossed and headed down the main road, Portal Avenue, cars and bikes zooming past. Buses, both public and school, grumbling and screeching, smoke billowing from the tailpipes. Even though they were tight on time, they were loose on talk. Francie, in particular, was motor-mouthing. She always did when she was anxious, asking John if he'd ever heard of anybody named Satchmo, because there was a kid in her Spanish class named Satchmo Jenkins, and she just liked the name. "Nope. Never heard of nobody else named Francie either, though," John said with a shrug. "Yeah, but Francie is short for Francis," she went on. "Well, maybe Satchmo is short for Satchmo Reese. Maurice, Satchmo Reese, Satchmo, Satchmoka Latte, Satchmo Money," Bits marked, annoyed by the silly conversation Francie and John were having, and also by the silly conversation Trista was trying to have with him. "Bit, I'm serious," Trista was droning on. "What are you going to write about being?" Trista was referring to their English homework. Miss Broom wanted each student to write about being something else. Not a person, a thing. "I keep telling you, Trista, I don't know," Bit replied as a school bus rumbled by. "How about a school bus? That good enough for you?" "Not really," Trista said. The school bus was coming to a stop, its brakes grinding. Bit covered his ears. "I hate that sound. Matter of fact, I'd be a school bus that could fly. That way I ain't got to hit the brakes and make all that noise." Bit looked over at Trista. "How about that?" "All I'm going to say is, I could totally see you, a school bus falling from the sky." Trista laughed to herself, but just loud enough for Bit to hear. "Well, at least then I'd be a rocket." After 6 blocks, they turned down Crossman Street, stopping at the first house, the one that sat on the corner. An older house with a bunch of cars parked in the yard, barrel grills and big wheels in the driveway. A mess, but the home of the munchy master, Miss Cece. Miss Cece had been the neighborhood candy lady since the Low-Cuts' parents were kids. She was known for making sure everybody got a fair shot at sweet treats, because she knew not everybody could get to the corner store. There wasn't one on the corner of Crossman. Actually, there wasn't one within 5 blocks, so she had to be it. And the best part about Miss Cece was that she was open 24 hours a day. With Bit leading the way, the Low-Cuts beelined up her obstacle course of a driveway and rang the doorbell, which chimed a melodic yawn, like an old man just waking up. The Low-Cuts waited nervously, but Bit, full of fire and impatience, rang the bell again. And again. "Come on," he growled. "Ain't nobody got all day." "Chill," Francie said. "You know she moves slow." Sure enough, a few seconds later they heard the sound of Miss Cece's slippers slowly sliding sliding across the floor, and her voice oozing through the wooden door. I'm coming, don't poop your pants. Trista smiled at that, because Miss Cecy always mentioned pooping, as if the only people who ever rang her bell were people in desperate need of a bathroom. The door swung open, and there she was, a small lady, jet black wig sitting on top of her head like a hat she'd purposely cocked to the side. The hair was too dark, especially compared to the few silver hairs springing from her chin. She wore a turquoise sweatsuit, the sleeves and legs cut off, threads hanging like a blue-green spiderweb. Her ankles were swollen, and so were her cheeks. If it weren't for the hair and the bumpy freckles, her face would have looked like a baby's. Her voice, on the other hand, sounded like a truck engine. Look who it is. Eeny, meeny, miny, mo, Miss Cecy said, pointing at each of them. What y'all want? Well, John John started, because John John was usually the one who spoke for the crew. The nice one. He dug in his pocket, opened his hands, showing all the silver and copper. We got 90 cents, and we need candy, Miss Cecy, Bit blurted. Then, clapping his hands together, he repeated, We need candy. Bit. Francie's voice was a warning to calm down, but Bit's ears didn't hear it that way. What? We do, and we in a rush. He tapped his wrist where there was no watch, checked it like checking a pulse. A live one for sure. Don't be rude, Trista said, calm. Like too calm. So calm that even Miss Cecy took a step back. Bit quieted down, puffed, rolled his wrist, and muttered, Go ahead, John John. We got 90 cents, and we need as much candy as you can give us, John John explained. Miss Cecy looked at the four of them, a stair-step from John John, the tallest, down to Bit. Do I want to know what y'all up to? She asked, and they just looked at her like she hadn't asked it, like she hadn't said anything. So she acted like she hadn't said anything either. Wait right here. The thing about Miss Cecy's house was that kids could never go in unsupervised. Even though she knew them and their parents, she was always very careful about young people in her home buying candy, because it basically was the plot of every abduction story she'd ever watched, and she didn't want people thinking she was doing that, because she wasn't. So the Locuts had to wait at the door another few minutes until Miss Cecy returned with a small card table. She set the table up just outside the house, then pulled boxes of candy from a small closet right by the front door, where most people would hang their coats. She set the boxes up on the table. Okay, today in the penny, nickel, and dime categories, we got the old stuff. You always say that when we come here. Don't nobody want no stale candy, Miss Cecy? Bit said, fighting himself to cool his tone. It's not stale, Britain. It's just older styles of candies. Like how that Michael Jordan sneakers y'all be paying all that money for keep getting remade. That's what this is. Retro candy. Hard to get, and used to cost only a penny a piece when I was a little girl. But I gotta charge y'all 4 cents more. Attitude tax. Bit cocked his head. Miss Cecy cocked hers right back. Let that be a lesson, son. Plus, everything costs more over time. Inflation, Francie said. Sounds more like deflation, Bit grumbled under his breath, patting his pockets. What you say? Miss Cecy asked, adding the last box to the lineup on the table. Nothing, John John subbed in for Bit. Okay, y'all know the rundown, Miss Cecy said. I got Mary Jane's, Tootsie Rolls, Squirrel Nut Zippers. Bit did his best to trap his laugh, but a pfft slipped from his mouth. No matter how tough and tight he was, Squirrel Nut Zippers broke him every time. Let her finish, Francie said through her own giggles. Squirrel Nut Zippers, Miss Cecy repeated, then continued with the list. Lifesavers, individually wrapped, Bit of honey, Charleston Chews, Bazooka bubblegum, and... She popped back into the closet, mumbling to herself, then popped back out. I think that's it in terms of bang for your buck. They leaned over the table looking at all the candy, trying to decide which was the right candy to get. Finally, Francie spoke up. What you think, Bit? Oh, now y'all care what I think, he snapped back. Don't be petty all your life. That was from John John. We just know you know what to do with it better than us, Francie explained. You know how to use it. Exactly, Trista said, scratching her head. Miss Cecy covered her ears. I don't want to know. I don't want to know. Bit turned to her. I mean, you said this candy from when you were young, right? Miss Cecy pulled her hands away from her face. That's right. So which was your favorite? Miss Cecy surveyed the table. It'd have to be a tie between the Mary Janes and the Lifesavers. I mean, that peanut butter mixed with syrup in the Mary Janes was like heaven. But the pure sugar of the Lifesavers was to little Cecilia a lifesaver. So we'll take as many of both of those as we can get. Miss Cece started to count them out, and a few seconds later there were 18 pieces of candy in front of them. 9 Mary Janes, 9 Lifesavers. John lets the coins fall into Miss Cece's hands, Bit scooping up the candy. Later, Miss Cece, he said, already walking away. Boy, one of these days you're going to learn some manners, she clapped back. Tell your mama I'm praying for him. Matter of fact, I'm praying for all your mamas, knuckleheads. Low cuts, Francie said, smiling. Right, low cuts, short cuts, whatever. You'll always be knuckleheads to me. Come on. Bit was at the end of the driveway, rocking back and forth antsy. We're running out of time. They went back to the main road, back to busy Portal Avenue, with the cars and trucks and other kids, other walkers, lollygagging on their way home from school. What's the math, Francie? John asked as he pulled a wad of sandwich bags from his pocket. Francie was the smartest low-cut when it came to numbers. She could break it all down in her head in a way that would have taken Bit and John a calculator to do, and Trista probably 2 pages of long division. 18 pieces? We do bundles of 3. That's 6 bundles. Sell them for $1 a pop. That's only $6, Bit said. Yeah, and that's enough, John replied. No, we need more. We can get more. Bit had turned around and was walking backwards so he could look his friends in their faces. I know these guys. I know these kinds of guys. They don't carry change ever. So we charge them $1.50 and they'll give us 2. Matter of fact, because we don't even have time for all these transactions, let's just do 3 bundles of 6, $2.50 a pop. They'll all pay 3 and we'll walk with 9. See, even though Francie was the best with math, Bit was the best with hustle. No doubt about it. When they got to Placer Street, which they'd practically run to after figuring out the numbers, they stopped on the corner, out of breath, and organized the candy. 3 Mary Janes and 3 Lifesavers in 3 bags. Trista slid her phone from the back pocket again. It's 3:44. We got 15 minutes. Gotta make this quick, Francie said, twisting the bags, tying knots at the top of them. A block down the street, they came into a building that looked like an old house, but had a sign out front. Placer Pool. The low-cut stood outside, stared at the building for a moment, and working up the nerve to go in. And whether the nerve was worked up or not, once Bit said, ready, he took off for the door. It chimed when he pushed it open and stepped into the smoky building, John, Trista, and Francie following close behind. Silence, except for one pool ball smacking against another. Then, total silence. Old men like scraggly human cigarettes with non-human cigarettes dangling from their mouths all turned and looked. And after a few awkward seconds, Bit ballooned his chest with bravery, rolled his shoulders back, and said, "Candy for sale." A man came from behind an old wooden bar. "Kid, you can't be in here." Bit knew he couldn't be in there. He knew none of them could be in there. But he'd been watching this place for a while. He'd been sitting across the street checking out who was going in and how long they stayed. The smoke that came screaming out every time the door opened. The cussing men who went on about losing money and the laughing men who bragged about winning some. This was a place for pool players, but more than that, Bit knew it was a place for hustlers. "Don't I know you?" another man said. "Don't matter if you know me," Bit shot back. "Me and my friend selling candy. Say bye or say bye." John, Trista, and Francie were impressed by that line. They'd heard Bit talk like this before. This wasn't the first time they'd done this. They'd walked into a bingo hall once and heard him tell an old lady he was her troll doll, the only good luck charm she'd ever need. But this time was different. There was a knife in his voice, something sharp they'd never heard. And the guy did know him, knew him from the neighborhood. That guy had fixed his mother's car once, and Bit had stood next to him, mean mugging the whole time the guy was under the hood, just in case he tried to cheat his mom. "We don't want no candy, so how about we got Mary Janes and Lifesavers?" Francie joined in, held the bags up like they were full of gold coins. "Yeah, we got Mary Janes and Lifesavers," Bit said, doubling down. "Mary Janes?" A man wearing an eye patch called from the back of the room. He set his pool cue down on the table next to him and walked toward the low cuts. "What y'all know about Mary Janes?" To be continued.